Hey, prep school. So, Beard in knee deep county time right now. So, I have had to reach out to some other people I know to get a comic for like 4 weeks or so. I think it's close to being done. It's being so hard. So, I was fortunate enough this week to get Cassandra. Cassandra, can you introduce yourself, please?
What do you want to know?
What do you do? Like, who are you? Who are you?
I'm Cassandra. I'm a puzzler. Um, I don't know. I'm an occasional DM, about once a year, maybe once every other year for Extra Life. I do it for the kids, 'cause otherwise it gives me anxiety on a regular basis.
So that's a good place to start. How do you work on you're not running a normal game when you run for Extra Life because you're running a streamed game um over there's a 24-hour period and you're just kind of in a lineup. How do you do that? How do you work on running a game like that when you already have nerves about running a game and you're actually running it in a bigger platform than most of our games would?
I think for me, it involves really loving whatever I build, just because I don't run a pre-built very well. Just I think it's because I'm not committed to the storyline, or I'm not. I'll forget like little bits are like, oh, the story said this, and it doesn't work for me. So I have to custom build it for myself. And so for me, it's about having it thoroughly done, and then also probably doing it in a way where I'm stealing a bunch of stuff. So like I've done a session where it was loosely based on the Wizard of Oz, or um, the last time I pulled you in and you ended up being the secret bad guy through some of it. But then so that was a little bit like, oh, I built it up to a point and then I let you take the reins and run with it. So for me, it's about generally mashing it up with something I already know, I already feel comfortable with, what probably a story, a general plot movement, and then just making sure I prep myself. I'm the type of person that has to like, oh, if I'm gonna have these monsters, I need to have their stats laid out for me because I forget about like, oh, how tough can they be if I try to wing it? So
So when you are in that situation because you don't have the utmost like confidence in doing that, or just self-described, you're not the greatest improver in the world. How do you roll with those punches?
uh, I don't know if there's a secret to it really, as much as it's just you just got to jump in and do it. Once you're in it, you're good. Like the nerves tend to go away a bit. Um, they'll come back if I've messed something up, but then that's me learning to be a better improver. Um, I don't think you have to be perfect at it to DM or play. Um, but I think you kind of always have to work at it a little bit. It's not for me, I'm not a natural person at it, so it's a skill that I have to work on. And I think it's mostly just doing it for me. If I'm prepared, there's generally less nerves once I'm going. Um, but that's because I'm prepared, I think. So I think for me, it's all about making sure that I have the details I want, and I have to learn to fluff the middle part because I think there's a fair amount of DMing that is you have to be able to roll with the punches. Um, and it's okay to learn that. I think it's been helpful in my actually regular games where I play and not where I'm running, is having to DM once in a while. I get a little bit, just because it's not a long period of time. I'm only running for a couple hours, but it's a little bit of insight of like, oh, so if I was DMing, I'd kind of want to hear something like this, and so then it gives me a little bit better of a thing.
So you DM to yourself then?
Pretty much.
Okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just curious. It's interesting. Um, that's an interesting way to kind of think about it. Um,
I figured if I am comfortable with the story and I'm not tripping over myself, that everyone else is. As a player, I know it's a little easy to be impressed and to have fun. You know, is as long as you don't die, generally speaking, you're probably having a good time. So if if I can DM through some really funny moments, then they kind of gloss over when things don't go quite so smoothly.
do you look at it as humor becomes the backbone of what you're doing?
For me, yeah.
Okay.
There's a good portion of like maybe not even necessarily me being humor, but maybe allowing for the times for the humor for everyone else, not being flexible. I think there's, especially with some of our friends that we play with a whole lot, and it's very specific to our friends, but you know, our friends have big personalities and they have lots of witty, sarcastic humor. So if I allow for the time for them to be jokey and not care if they have some weird quirk with their character, I think it works well for the storyline as long as you can, because if they have fun, it'll be a great session no matter what you do.
So, kind of speaking of that, how so when you're starting to build this, do you have like a theme or an idea of like a mood or a backbone of what you're trying to do in these situations? Do you ever think about that deeply, or is it just like I have an idea or something I can build off of, and then I just go from there?
It's always an idea. It's always, I'm not great at world building from scratch. Um, it's almost too much. My brain just goes, "Holy cow, that's a lot of details that I have to come up with. Like all these NPCs and all these names of worlds." And that kind of goes with the whole, like, I don't, improving is a struggle for me. Like sometimes I'm like, "Oh, well, what's the name of the place you're from?" And I have to go, then my brain blanks out. So I always build off of something. So like the first one I ever ran was, you know, loosely based off the Wizard of Oz. I'm currently building one loosely based off the movie slash game Clue, you know. So I always steal inspiration or rough storylines from something else and then customize it because it's something I know. So it's, you know, I take things and just modify it, you know. So like when I'm looking at the Clue stuff, it's like, oh, okay, I have to have these, you know, character names. Okay, well, I'm not going to steal their character names, but I'm probably going to do something very similar because I know it. Then it's already something I'm comfortable with. Which, if I'm comfortable, it's one less thing that I have to worry about improving or coming up with at the last minute.
And that's something I would be remiss if I didn't point out that I think you're far too harsh on yourself when it comes to that. I've seen you kind of like really grow and step up your game drastically as I've known you and as have been a player with you in games. Um, how do you continue to kind of evolve your style? How do you continue to as a player, and then how does that inform your decision making as someone who's running games now? Even though it's once a year, you still are running games.
As a player, it's just about practice, and I think the thing that I've done differently as I've gone on and played is become more involved in my backstory. Um, I used to build characters that were like, "Oh, I just really love these powers. I really want to be a barbarian who rages and smashes and does this and has two attacks and, you know, stuff like that." And as I don't know if it's gotten older or just being around people who role play more, like our friends are very, generally speaking, role play heavy. They love to get in on it, you know. Um, so it's exposure to and just challenging myself a little bit more to develop a backstory, being comfortable with the, I think I was always weird about the idea of making stuff up. Like, oh shoot, if I make up a name The DM's not gonna like that because that's not something that's already part of their world, and um, it's not gonna work for them. And then coming to realize eventually, it's like, oh well, if you have a generally pretty decent DM, they'll take it and they'll roll with it. It'll be fine. Like they'll love that you put something in really interesting, and it'll be great. Or the idea of like, oh well, I could pre-approve this with them ahead of time as long as I give myself time to think about things and actually develop a storyline.
How does that inform then how you run games? Has that changed your idea on running games? Like that idea of creative freedom and your ability then to see that you can have that with DMs, and then how does that affect how you run your games?
It's one of those, if I can ask other DMs to do that, then oh, it's really cool that I can do that too. It's that idea of like, okay, try it's what's the improv line? Yes, and so just trying to be better about like, oh, okay, so or even just asking questions in general. Oh, so that's the person who ruined your childhood. Oh, okay, so you know, have you seen them since then? Where do you have them? Like asking lots of questions that even if I need a moment to figure out what I'm going to do with it as a DM, if I ask those questions, it gives me a moment to think while they're telling me something, and then I can kind of improv a little bit smoother.
So, I mean, it's something you've definitely become more comfortable with. Has the shift from in person gaming to online gaming changed that comfort level? Has it made it better?
Maybe. Um, I think what it's done is it's taken a little bit of pressure off me as a DM when I have ran um since we're going virtual, just because there's as much as I am not like 100% fan of theater of the mind. I like moving things around the board and being inspired by like, oh, there's this terrain thing here. Oh, so I'm gonna, if I'm, playing, I'm usually like, oh, I'm gonna, kick off this tree stump and do a flip and whatever. But I think DMing though, that actually takes pressure off. Like that's one less thing I have to think about. I can, and I could fudge things a lot easier. It's like, oh, if I really need that, they're really struggling, then it's easier for me to in my head say, oh, there's one less ogre versus like, oh, there's already four on the board. So how do I work with getting one out because they're really close to dying anyways? And to me, it's been a little bit easier to DM in the kind of setting where we're at now, where we're not in person. I miss though the you can feel excitement virtually, but something about it around the table when people get excited and they cheer, they're really getting into it and laughing. I feel like that's just always better in person. It's still there virtually. It's really not any different, but it just feels different.
Well, I think, like you were just saying, the tactileness of moving little things around on a board is there's something to it that is strangely brings everything together. It's an interesting way of playing. So it's something that is extremely functional if that's the way that you started. That's kind of the backbone because you started with fourth edition, correct?
Yep. And I started with, big boards and minis all over the place, and so it is a little bit of a departure of like, oh, that's where, it feels like home to me, but, you know, get
Do
older,
you
you need to adapt.
do you have a preference when you think back to fourth edition and fifth edition? Do you have a preference between the two?
I think 5th runs smoother. Um, I didn't played what, maybe a year of 4th before switching? Maybe a couple years. I can't
Yeah.
remember. Maybe a couple years of 4th, and I honestly don't remember much about it. I don't know if it's just being in 5th for as long as we've been in 5th, or um it's just not really having an impact. But I remember feeling like, oh, fifth runs smoother. But I also play in games where it's generally decently DM modded. Like this is my flair. We're gonna keep this in. Um, what's the one that's gone flanking or something like that?
Yeah.
We still flank. We're like, what's in real life, if you were flanking someone and two people were hitting it, obviously it's going to go better for you because the person you're attacking is not going to be able to focus. Yeah, makes sense. Leave it in. Let's do it. And inspiration. We give inspiration, and you get not just another attack, but like a whole nother action, or you get a reroll. It's a little more flexible, but also I think those types of flares make it your own and they make it fun.
So you've also played other games. Is there a specific other game or system that you've really, really, really enjoyed?
Um, I think I've played a lot of things that was based off the Apocalypse engine, where you're rolling
Yeah,
d6s.
yeah, powered by the
Um,
Apocalypse games.
yep. Uh, and those to me are highly flexible, and that's been fun. I've never run one off, based off of that, but playing it definitely those types of games will challenge me a little bit more role playing wise too, because there is a lot more of like, oh, you need to kind of come up with how you're doing this, and I'll tell you what dice to roll. So, but for the most part, that's the one that sticks out to me the best.
So you're a fan of more structured games, though, overall.
I feel like I'm a better player when I have a little bit more structure. I think when it's wide open, it's almost too much for my brain to compute. It's like, oh, there's too many possibilities, and then I get paralysis by overanalysis. So a little bit of structure. I don't need it to be completely laid out for me, but some a little bit of rules tends to be a little bit more helpful for me. And if there's no rules, then that's where the map kind of helps too, because then it's like, oh well, if there's not like a strict rule, then I kind of need something to focus myself. Maybe that means I'm more scatterbrained. I'm not sure, but
No, I mean, knowing you, I know that a lot of it just boils down to being a very visual person and, being far more comfortable in games that have a lot of structure rather than some games that don't. So I think that that is a big deal. All right. Well, are you working on anything today? Did you want to work on any projects today?
nah, I'm open.
All right.
I've just
Well,
started my clue stuff, so I'm really in the beginning parts of it. It's in a rough spot. It'll get there, but I got time. I don't know if I'm gonna run that this year for Extra Life or next year for Extra Life. We'll see.
I have stuff I am working on, so I'm going to share my screen and I am going to elicit some of your help.
Oh boy.
All right. Well, I am working on getting Chaos Scar up and running. So one thing about Chaos Scar is it is an old fourth edition um, game. It's an old fourth edition adventure path. I very much like it, but I also feel like it's not exact. It's pretty bland in some ways. So I'm doing some changes to some of it. But it's nice to have the adventures built in, so I don't have to struggle so hard with that. So what I've decided to do, what I'm working on today, is I've got three things that I'm kind of putting together. Um, Two of them I think are far more in the foreground than in the background, and that is campaign planning for Chaos Scar and campaign planning for my follow up to the Bounty Hunter game that I ran at Extra Life this year. So I have an ongoing Star Wars trilogy game. I have had two trilogies thus far. Everyone likes them very much. They are set in the I like boot blacking very. I like it very much.
I said liking very much is probably an understatement. I've seen the praise.
Um, So I have that group, which is the game itself is set um, right between episode 3 and episode 4. So it's during the beginning of the rebellion. But I also have this bounty hunter game, which is kind of running parallel to it. And at the end of the game, the bounty hunters were being paid to kill a former kind of low-ranking senator named Alari Marin, who was a um, member of the other trilogy group, who was trying to secure financial backing and the like for their little rebellion issue. So at the end, when they failed to kill Alari, the players decided to kill her doppelganger live on the HoloNet, which the Empire was like, no, this makes us look bad. So they canceled their contracts and basically put hits out on them. At the end of that game, they were contacted by Alari Marin, who was like, "Hey, I heard you guys need a job." So I'm trying to kind of put together what that job would be. So I think the campaign hook is um, former bounty hunters are now hunted and need credits in safe haven. So then it's a matter of like when you're thinking about something like that, you love the Mandalorian. Hey, how about that Mandalorian over
I
there?
was gonna say that feels like something we might hear down south a little bit more.
Yeah,
The
have you guys been?
Mandalorian.
Have y'all been keeping up with the Mandalorian?
I'd say, is that down south or is that more like New York, more East Coast?
Who knows? I'm bad at accents. I love doing them, but I'm bad at them.
You're good at accents. I am bad at accents. I get about a sentence and a half in, and then I lose it. So all my characters have just quirks that I work on because I can't change it really.
Nothing wrong with that. So when you're thinking about Star Wars and you're thinking about the things that you're familiar with, when you start to kind of process that idea of bounty hunters and dealing with a government like the Empire, what is a hook that comes to mind?
I know watching series of seasons of both the seasons of Boba Fett. Oh man, it's me too. Oh no, I'm struggling too. Oh, it's not good.
At least you didn't call him Baba Fett.
Boba
Babby,
Fett.
Babby Fett.
Okay, watch out for Boba Fett. That's that feels like he would need a hut with chicken legs on it then if that's the case.
Oh, that would be cool.
I I always enjoy not having like an extensive Star Wars background. It's not what I grew up on. I think I'm probably always several years behind most people when it comes to liking things. My high school career was liking Next Generation and Hercules and Xena. So but so not having like the extensive background, I always love when the new stuff can actually pull in little tidbits from the previous things that I recognize a little bit more, like creatures, or even if it's just sly mentions of big names, even if you don't even interact with them, it's always just like, oh, I know that name.
So familiarity.
Yeah.
So what is a familiar name from Star Wars? That's
I mean,
not the
what
the
is it?
the Mandalorian or Baba Fett.
um for me, I don't know why I always get stuck on thinking of some of the female characters a little bit more. Maybe it's just me, and me always trying to shove some more females in there because it's a little bit like the world. It's a little gender heavy to the male sometimes. So I'm always like, Bo-Katan and Ahsoka, Ahsoka. Said it, and I was like, that's wrong. Nope, said it right. Um, I tend to lean that direction myself.
Okay, well, Bo-Katan's a great example. So let's fit. How can we fit Bo-Katan in here? Um, so the campaign hook is it that they're being hired to what with Bo-Katan?
It's your campaign. I don't know. What do you want?
Well, that's why we're working on this
Oh,
together.
oh boy. Here's that thinking on the feet thing. So, wait, are they working with? Or are they seeking safety with?
Well, that's the thing. So let's see what.
Because if they're looking for safe haven, are they looking for safe haven with people who can protect them? Are they looking for, some muscle, or um are they looking to really just hide out from everybody?
I think they're looking to continue to work
Okay.
because otherwise, what it kind of is the point. Um, I'm trying to remember what Bo-Katan was doing during this time period.
And that's a question I cannot tell you.
So she was working to um, resist the Empire and leading Mandalorian loyalists against Clan Saxon, which was during basically the beginnings of the Mandalorian Civil War.
So,
I'm sorry, like the third or fourth Mandalorian Civil War.
there's more than one, right? Um, so would it make more sense that Boca would need them to acquire something for her, or um assist with the Civil War a little bit more, I guess?
What if Laurie Marin needs them to run weapons to Bo-Katan's effort?
I like it.
So they're going to do some gun running, basically. Oh man, my controller's got all wonky here.
Sounds nice and dangerous.
All right, well, let's. Laurie Marin offers the players credits and a um, an access to a safe house in repayment for. So she was working with the Bothans for getting um, black market goods from the Bothan Underground to Bo Katan's forces on Mandalore. All right, there's our campaign hook. So we need 6 truths of our campaign. What are the 6 undeniable facts that we can build off of? Number 1, I would say, is players are wanted.
Oh, I mean, obviously. Can't be a gun runner and not be wanted.
So they are criminals by the standards of the Empire. Um, what would be next? What's another good kind of Star Wars esque truth?
Is it weird for me to think that in Star Wars you're always going to have ship problems?
That is a great one.
I feel like someone's always breaking down.
As a former friend of mine would say when we talked about Phantom Menace should have been titled Star Wars Episode 1 On the Way to the Adventure We Had Car Problems.
Pretty much.
And I agree. That is a huge tenet backbone of Star Wars. Well put.
This probably just has something to do with the fact that, they are rebels. So you don't always have the best stuff and you're trying to piece things together.
Um, would another one be that they're for hire? That not necessarily they have as much honor as credits will take them.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think if you're doing that type of job, that's what you have to look for. I may not like you, but you pay more, so guess what? We're gonna work together. Can't get anywhere without the credits.
so I put the circles the PCs run in are as loyal as the amount of credits they receive. So betrayal is a. I'm going to put that in parentheses. Is a possibility.
I always feel like it's either you're probably gonna get betrayed or you're gonna get some fierce loyalty. It always feels like one or the other.
I'm going to change that. That is a great point. That's a great thematic thing. All right. That's 3 real quick.
Oh,
So you can come up with 3 more.
oh boy. Um,
So because they're on a different kind of side of the law, but they were also doing, dirty deeds done dirt cheap before this. Um, flexible morality. Like I said, one of the players just flat out killed a bunch of innocent people because he was frustrated on TV.
well, that is an interesting response to a problem.
Would it be maybe that flexible morality can make strange bedfellows?
Yeah, because I mean, it could work well depending on the situation.
It's that fact that if you're willing to do some of those more dirty work type jobs, who hires for those things?
It's also something I feel like you see a lot where, people make a plan and it never goes to plan. Here's my plan. This is going to be great. Halfway through it, guess what, guys? This isn't working out.
I got that. I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
All right, that's 4. Let's try to think of 2 more. What else do you think of when you think of Star Wars? Especially, bounty hunting is a complicated profession. We know that.
I always feel like there's a side quest before you get to the main quest. You get halfway through the main quest, and then there's some side quests you have to complete. And then it's like, oh, now we're back on track. So always
personalized side quests are necessary.
Yeah, I feel like
to fulfill the main objective.
it's weird, but I think I know I've always, and that doesn't have to be in there, but it always feels like that, like, oh, okay, this is my quest. Oh, I'm gonna run into this other bad guy that has a problem with me, or run into a really tough space creature. I got to figure that out before I can actually get what I need. Or the whole like I have to go to someone else to get help to get to what I need, and so I have to do things for them kind of situation. Like, oh, I gotta, go get this person for this other bounty hunter so they'll get me the info for, finding what I need or something along that line. Always that idea of like, so it sort of falls into the whole things are going to go wrong, but also in that idea of like, because you're outside the law, you're probably going to need help, and maybe not necessarily from a friend. It might be an enemy. It's hard to go at it alone.
Yeah, sure. All right, I like that. That's a good. Like I don't always think about that, but yeah, just kind of going and having to deal with either people you have a history with, or good or bad, or that potential of kind of things that are the backbone of Star Wars. Like you said, having those touchstones of like, oh, I remember seeing this thing at this point. This kind of sparks that memory. That's a good point. All right, one more.
Hmm. Are you looking for things to like further the plot, or are
These are
they?
just truths. These are just absolutes for the game. They don't necessarily have to have, they just inform the plot. They don't actually, they are not the plot. So when I'm starting to figure out how that's going to go, I'm going to look at these six truths and they are going to be my guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm go, oh, I need to make sure that I build a little bit of this in and a little bit of that in. They're like a good framework.
Yeah. I don't know if I have another one though.
So when watching the Stars Wars that
The
you've
Star
watched,
Wars.
the Wars and the Stars that you have watched, what is another reoccurring theme that you see?
um, I for some reason my brain is stuck on thinking about big monsters. I don't know why. I feel like there's always. I feel like every episode brings in like an interesting animal that maybe you've sort of heard of but never seen. I'm not sure. That's where my head's going right now. My head says that I like talking about animals, but I don't know how to make that into a truth. It's a challenge for you.
There are dangerous animals in every environment, and to them, you are food.
There you go.
That's the truth. All right. So then we go to campaign fronts. So fronts are basically your bad guy or bad situation or environmental thing that's going on. Um, and that front is, if not dealt with, is constantly moving forward. So what you want to do is you want to identify the front. What is the front's goal, and what are three things that will alert the players to, like, oh crap, this is moving forward. Without, if we don't do something, this is going to move forward. So I think this is a lot easier. Front number one is PCs are hunted by the Empire. That sound like a good front.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Front two would be uh, the Mandalorian Civil War. In this case, what would be another front in that beginning of the Galactic Civil War kind of time period? What,
Is that something like how specific do you want how specific do the fronts have to be?
the fronts can be very generic, over kind of overarching.
I don't know.
So in thinking about Star Wars, what would be something else that is during this time period? The Senate would still be there. So, oh, how about front three is the Galactic Senate? Galactic Senate is on the verge of being dissolved.
That's a little more Star Wars history background that I don't have. That is where I'm a little bit more of a surface level fan, unfortunately. There's probably a fair amount of the movies I've only ever seen once in my life. So some of that little background history stuff would be a little bit of a struggle for me.
So I think the goals are easy. The the Empire wants to arrest or kill the PCs.
Obviously.
For the Mandalorian Civil War, Clan Saxon versus Bo-Katan for control of Mandalore. Saxon has the backing of the Empire. And the Galactus Senate is, this almost might be too large a font, a front. This is my one I'm a little shaky on. So I'm going to put a star beside it.
In case you think of something else.
Yeah, in case I can think of something that might fit a little bit better. So let's think about portents. What would be portents that the Empire is chasing the PCs?
What do you mean by this?
What are three ways where we can show without direct conflict that there is an ever escalating threat? So, because I think it's pretty easy to say threat number 3 would be being attacked by other bounty hunters.
Yeah.
This might be a little too Star Warsy, but it would be something you're aware of is the PC's transponder codes are on a search and seizure list.
I was actually thinking of, that like, oh, that's the increased presence of like needing to sneak around, or for some reason I find like it's the smallest thing, but I think it would be really funny to them if they find out like how much the bounty is on their head. Like, oh, maybe someone's a lot higher than the others, and they'll be like,
That's a great.
oh, what? Why not me? Oh, come on. A little bit of like a Flynn Rider, like, oh, they never get the picture right.
The one thing too is you remember what transponder codes are, right?
Yeah.
When Mando keeps getting pulled over, basically.
It's like getting pulled over for not having your tabs updated.
Mm-hmm. So I think that was easy. We got 3 real quick.
I know less about the Mando Civil War though, so this next one will be really interesting.
Well, let's just think about war altogether. Let's just think about a large scale conflict altogether. So let's say, and these are the things that are going on. Maybe why they're dealing with the bounty hunters or why they're on their little side quest or whatever it is. What are 3 things that can be going on to increase the potential of the situation?
Are you thinking maybe like something along the lines of maybe them losing ground somewhere in the war where they might have to change their flight path or something because they no longer have access to an area, or patrols
That's
are
going on
increased
there.
somewhere?
Bo-Katan is announced as a criminal against the Empire.
That'll
Was
work.
one. I love the second one. There is an Imperial blockade around the system to prevent aid. So they'll have to circumvent the blockade.
Gotta be sneaky.
Which would be, what are those stupid ships called? I can't remember what they're called. The ones that just like stop hyperspace travel.
Oh, don't ask me. I'd have to Google that stuff. I'd
I
have to
believe it
ask her.
starts with an I, but I can't remember what. Interdictor.
Oh, that's some deep knowledge. That's impressive.
With an E or an I. It is intradict. Boo! I can't spell.
It could be inter or intra. It could be. This is where I'm gonna Google it because.
Interdictor.
Oh, you got it before me. Damn it! Fast. I'm usually sleeping still at this time, so my brain is gonna catch up with me about the time that prep school is over. Should have had a coffee. Made that mistake. Should have made some coffee.
All right, that's awesome. All right, well, can we think of one more portent?
Would it be relevant that there'd be, I mean, if they're having difficulty getting around and there's blockades and whatnot, are they going to have to deal with um, lack of resources, I guess? Is that, I don't know if that's something that's relevant. I mean, like in my head, I'm going, oh, if there's blockade problems, you're not going to get gas for your car. But that's not
No,
really.
no, no. But I like kind of where your head's at. What if they discover maybe some, for lack of a better term, war crimes that Clan Saxon is committing with assistance from the Empire?
Oh God, so they have to decide if they're going to go do that or go do the other thing? That kind of situation?
Yeah, like maybe being confronted with the fact that there's a small populace they could help, or
More
they could,
quandaries.
yep, or they could run the guns all the way.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mood? How about moon? How about that? All right. Brings us to our final front, and I'm not satisfied with that front.
What if you did something more schlocky? Something a little bit more like,
Tell me more about your schlock.
I just was thinking, like, I was trying to think of things that would make me go, yay. And
Mm-hmm.
it would be maybe something more along the lines of like, for some reason I feel the need to insert Jabba the Hutt.
Well, how about just the huts in general? The
Yeah,
Hutt Hotel.
something with the Hutts in general maybe. Gives you a reference point and a little bit of a geek out moment, maybe.
How about if the huts are trying to hone in or take a cut of the gun running?
There you go. Taking a cut or trying to be the ones to do it, so they're trying to eliminate you.
That's the thing. I don't think the huts care. For them, it's
They just want the money.
yeah,
Mm.
the business is what matters. So if you get it there, that's great if they get paid. But if they don't, then they're gonna have to find a way to get their stubby fingers involved.
You have to pay a fee to cross through our system. Or, yeah,
Well, let me through their system because
it would be
that's
the
not.
system, yeah. Not the same area.
But the huts understand that there's money to be made here. Um, so the goal is the cartel wants to just wants to get paid.
I just picture I just picture a big old school bully like standing across the hallway that's like, you need to give me your lunch money.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was picturing as well.
I
You're
don't know
you're
why I always
you're
think of the huts like
you're
that.
you're smuggling, and I want part of this money.
Yeah.
All right. So the three grim portents.
Oh no. Oh
I would
no.
say the
Came with
first.
an idea, now I have to really think about it.
I would say the first portent is being contacted by a representative of the Hut Cartel.
Meaning that like there's
They
no
they
doubt they're gonna get contacted, they're gonna have to deal with it.
yeah, the cuts the a representative of the Huts reaches out and says, as we've done business before, the cartel would like to express their, done in that kind of flowery threat,
Yeah.
you know, that they're still prepared to work with you in certain capacities, but that if this is going to go on, that they're going to need some type of financial stake in the game.
So then they're gonna have to come to the conclusion of like, am I gonna deal with this, or am I just gonna try to ignore it?
Yeah, basically. Are we going to cut the huts in, or are we going to ignore them and know that then we just basically piss them off?
Hopefully, it's not a problem for the future, which it will be. So then, is this something that with these fronts, are these things that you're definitely trying to work into the storyline?
So fronts are something that is going on in the background. Sometimes it comes to the foreground, but it's like if you're not dealing with a front, it continues to escalate.
Okay.
So they have to decide. So the main campaign front is the Mandalorian Civil War, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're being hunted. So they don't deal with that fact, it's going to get worse.
And if they
If
don't deal with Jabba, they're gonna get hunted twice.
if they don't deal with the cartel, that they're also going to have problems. So the first thing is the basically, hey, we know you're doing this. If you don't cut us in, let's just say things may not go smoothly for you.
Yeah.
So what would be the next escalation? Because my thing would be bounty that they are being attacked by bounty hunters.
Yeah, I was
Which
thinking bounty or forced meetings, like, oh, you literally get surrounded and you have no other choice but to go deal with it. But that really forces a storyline that I don't know if you want to, push in that direction.
the other thing, it doesn't have to be like a showdown type of thing. It can just be that they jump into a system to refuel and they're attacked by people that they used to be colleagues with. And the thing is like, oh man, you're wanted. You're wanted by the Empire, but also there's a price on your head by the Hutt cartel as well.
Yeah.
Which is unrelated apparently. So I don't know who you pissed off, but I need
Oh
I need
man,
an,
then you'd have to decide like, oh, are you gonna turn into the Empire? You're gonna turn into the Hutts. Ooh.
all right.
Who
So
pays more?
let's think of one more front attached to this issue with the Hutt cartel. And it wouldn't necessarily have to be the Hutts. I mean, we could use Black Sun, we could use the Pikes. I mean, all of them are crime syndicates.
I think bringing in another crime syndicate could be fun. I get concerned that if we do another Hut front, it's going to force something into the storyline that maybe doesn't necessarily have to be there, you know? Because I feel like the next escalation for this is like literally you have to go talk to the Hutts, and then that's really going to kind of derail the.
Hey, Shaggy. Good to
That
see
might
you.
that might derail the story if you're kind of forcing them to go do something, you know?
Well, the Hutts are only going to be working through intermediaries. It's just how they roll. It's not like the Hutts are going to show up in person.
Yeah,
They're like the mob. They're going to work through so many different intermediaries before they actually have to get involved, personally. So that I'm not worried about. It's more about finding that one more front of escalation. Would it be the last important? Would be previous criminal contacts, our previous underworld contacts cease relationships with the PCs? Like you
they get
become
cut off. Is that what you're
you
saying?
become radioactive. Like, hey man, we can't even talk
No
because if
one's
I
gonna help you.
if
Oh
I get
boy,
found out that I'm talking to you,
that's a good one.
because one of the things that got touched upon in the Extra Life game was their bounty hunting guild said, you messed up. Like, we can't continue to deal with you because if we do, the Empire is going to basically get rid of our guild.
problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, you are now radioactive.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that one a lot. That because it, I mean, it is something that they might have to deal with, and also might be something that just kind of they can work around. You can circumvent it a bit.
All right. Well, that is, look at that. We're ready to roll with the base,
Oh boy! Look, I helped! Yay!
with the basic backbone, just like that.
Ha! It's a nice little setup you got going on there.
Yeah, and for those that are watching who don't know, I am using almost exclusively currently Mike Shea's Lazy Dungeon Master keys to like how to set up games, how to run more effectively with minimal prep. Um, I cannot recommend enough Mike Shea's Lazy Dungeon Master, Lazy Dungeon Master's Workbook, and Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. Um, and I cannot ever thank the antagonizer, Zach, for getting me hooked on those. So I think that they've been extremely helpful in cutting down um, my prep time, but also, um, I guess, for lack of a better term, giving me tools to build prep in different ways. So yeah, we didn't really touch Chaos Guard too much. I've been messing with it a little bit, but again, I've got the keep on the scar portion up. You can see that Wizards was kind enough to give like, hey, here's this person and this is who they are. I've been changing a lot of that. I keep the backbone, but I change it because I can't help myself.
You
But
love to customize, and that's okay.
but also like I customized their map.
Wow.
So Incarnate is a great tool. I like it very much. uh, I need to do an Incarnate for Rustwell Keep though as well, which is that Cassandra. We're a little early,
Oh boy.
like by a little over a minute. But anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to point out? Where can people find you? What are you doing? Who you
I
be?
mean, people can't find me anywhere. That's the trick. Is
As you can see in the crawl.
in the crawl, you could see I would just, maybe a reason why I'm not a great guest for you because I have sorry, I maybe like a 5% social media presence. I have a Facebook page where I post puns and recipes, maybe jokes about needing naps.
And
So, but
coffee.
I mean, coffee. I love coffee. I do play though on Down and Outlands every other Monday. So not this upcoming Monday, but the Monday after is when it starts. Over on we're on Known World United, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get to play your friendly neighborhood Kender Barbarian, something you don't see very often. So I'm always there if you're really intrigued on watching me struggle smoothly through my role playing. I feel like even when I struggle, I've learned to cover it up in a way where it doesn't feel like a struggle. But yeah, I mean, honestly, you can't really find me anywhere. I suppose I should maybe have an online presence one day, or I'll just remain mysterious.
Um, that's 7 p.m. Central over on this very channel. Well,
Oh boy,
we
same channel.
bum bum bum. Beard is running Drakewind Falls every other Saturday night, 7 p.m. on this channel. They played last night. I haven't talked to him how it went, but I'm sure it went well. It always does. Tiny Ming over on Heel Turn, the sister channel, Tuesday nights. I am on this Tuesday night. We start at 8 p.m. Central, so I'll be modding. Been working on this dude right now. Oh, and another dude. But I might do some miniature painting. I don't know. Don't know what I'm going to work on. I got all kinds of crap everywhere. Chaos Guard does not have a start date or time yet, but it's on its way. And then on Thursdays, 7 p.m. on this channel, Bad at Games. So yeah, a lot going on. We do lots of stuff. We try to have fun. We try to involve everybody. I really want to say thank you to anyone. Shaggy, I know you were in there. Apparently, someone else is watching. I don't know who you are, but thank you for watching. Hopefully, it's helped you prep your game. I know it's helped me prep mine. And we'll see you next Sunday morning. Say goodbye, Cassandra.
Bye.